operations.
Jerika, there are still helicopters tonight that are flying up and down the Guadalupe River. Officials have confirmed they have found 13 people to this point who have died after these floods. There are still more than 20 girls missing from one of those camps you mentioned, which is upriver. This is still a rescue mission, though, at this point, with first responders hoping to find more survivors.
That river rose 26 feet in 45 minutes.
Overnight, 12 inches of rain fell within an hour, turning Kerr County into a catastrophic flood zone. First responders launched dozens of rescues along the swollen Guadalupe River, flooding several children's summer camps. Dan Patrick is the acting Texas governor.
Out of the over 700, we have a number of about 23 not accounted for.
This helicopter swooped in and rescued a young camper from the top of a tree. Photos from inside one of the camps show children being evacuated.
We will do everything humanly possible 24/7, looking at every tree, turning over every rock, what it takes. If your child is one of those truly missing.
Torrents of floodwaters ripped away cars and this house with people inside.
We do not have a mooring system.
Rob Kelly is the Kerr County judge.
We had no reason to believe that this was going to be anything like what's happened here. None whatsoever.
This concrete pad was part of an RV park, and the owner told me they were lined up along the riverbank for the 4th of July holiday, but there was no warning for them to get out in time, and all of them washed down the river.
Residents were told to evacuate and move to higher ground. Barry Adelman was staying at his grandmother's home by the Guadalupe River when he was jolted awake by the sound of water.
The scariest part for me is seeing the children and the moms and dads and knowing that they were hurt and without some of their loved ones.
From the house, Adelman took this photo of a family friend clinging to a tree.
She told us she was floating down the river with her husband, and her husband kept telling her to grab anything you can grab, and she did, and she said, Barry, I caught the last tree, the very last tree right on your property.
That woman's husband is still missing. The scar marks on the trees here, 25 to 30 feet high, that's where RVs and homes were hitting them as they down the river.
All right, Jason Allen for us, thank you so much. And here to explain how the flooding disaster unfolded is CBS News Bay Area Chief Meteorologist Paul Hagan. Paul, when you think about the amount of rain that fell in such a short amount of time, I mean, it is truly remarkable.
It is remarkable, Jerika, what the atmosphere can do. And it's not just it's too much rain. It's too much rain in too short a period of time onto a landscape that just cannot absorb that volume of moisture. You can see the storms on the radar replay training over the Texas Hill Country and over again, adding up to amounts well in excess of what the forecast models were predicting, 8 to 10 inch on a widespread basis. Some spots over 15 inches of rain, months worth of rain, much of it falling at night. It's just a recipe for a disaster. And unfortunately, we are in for more rain as we head through the next 24 hours. We'll switch over to Futurecast. The bulk of this next round of rain is going to be focused a little closer to San Antonio, but still, any additional rainfall is going to have these folks on edge. Jerika?
All right, thanks, Paul. We'll check back in with you a little bit later. At the White House this evening, President Trump signed his multi-trillion-dollar tax cut and spending plan he calls One Big Beautiful Bill. He wanted it on his desk by July 4th, and this week it squeaked through the Republican members of Congress. The president will now take his global trade war off the back burner and turn up the heat on America's trade partners. We get details tonight from Scott McFarland.
Amid a 4th of July celebration.
This is the most popular bill ever signed. And it includes the largest tax cut in American history, the largest spending cut, $1.7 trillion.
The president signed the spending and tax cut bill on his self-imposed deadline for approval of the law. The political argument over whether the bill boosts the economy or starves money and health care for millions of people will go on as a deadline looms on another White House priority. By Wednesday at midnight, the president says he'll jack up tariffs on products from dozens of nations across the globe unless they cut new trade deals with the U.S. Progress has been announced in talks with only a precious few, the U.K., China, and Vietnam.
Is there a concern tariffs could...
Absolutely. Most of our products are made using
from factories abroad.
Miranda Stein helps run a group of apparel and gift shops in Virginia and Washington, D.C.
Is it difficult to figure out how to set a price if you don't know what the materials are going to cost for the people producing it?
Absolutely. There's been a lot of uncertainty. We had some tote bags that went up $7 in price from $20 to $27 in the span of a week. It can be hard for us to know how to plan, and it's hard for our makers to know how much to order at a time. They're getting worried and having to order larger quantities so they can lock in the prices now.
The president's initial tariff announcement in April throttled the stock market, tanking 401ks and raising fears of supply shortages. The market has rebounded, but fears of inflation and small businesses collapsing are stirring again as the July 9th deadline approaches.
And Scott, there are a lot of countries still to strike deals with not a lot of time. How does that White House manage this?
Yeah, especially international trade deals, which are complex and time-consuming. The president has said he might send out letters to some countries just informing them of their new tariff rate, indicating negotiations might just be off. But also, Jerika, just like that big spending bill, these tariffs might not be politically popular, which would motivate the president to dial them back. All right, Scott McFarland at the White House. Thank you. President Trump lit the fuse on those sweeping tariffs on April 2nd, which you probably recall as Liberation Day. Tonight, Ian Lee explains how import taxes on fireworks could affect America's 250th birthday celebration next year.
Kovacs Fireworks in St. Joseph, Missouri is a blast of patriotic pyrotechnics.
We just have a lot of fun stuff.
Growing up, Sydney Hook saw her family's one stand expand into 3. But looking around, you'll notice every potential bang, pop of color, and flash of light is made in China.
How do tariffs impact you when 100% of your product comes from China?
I'd say it directly impacts us. Everything is coming straight there.
China makes 99% of all consumer fireworks sold in the United States. With hundreds of thousands of dollars in inventory, even the slightest increase bites into Hook's margins.
That cost will go onto the customer. There will be some things that we will take the shorter markup on.
Kovacs says their fireworks arrived after President Trump dropped the tariff from 145 to 30%. Others weren't so lucky. The American Pyrotechnics Association warns the current tariff at 30% threatens to shutter small fireworks businesses nationwide and is urging the Trump administration to consider an exemption.
You can't have 4th of July without fireworks.
With all the uncertainty, some customers like Christopher Carter are thinking about next year.
With tariffs, you never know. So I would just say if you have the finances, buy everything you want to have for the future now.
And if a deal with Beijing isn't reached, next 4th of July, America's 250th birthday could also look a bit dimmer.
Was Ian Lee reporting in Missouri. Now more on the top stories from around the world in tonight's Evening News Roundup. One person is dead after fireworks stored in a garage blew up during a house fire northwest of Los Angeles. And outside Sacramento, human remains have been recovered from Tuesday's massive explosion at a fireworks warehouse. 7 people are still listed as missing. Is President Trump warming up to Ukraine? He and Volodymyr Zelensky spent 40 minutes on the phone today, and help for the country's air defenses was said to be on the table. Russia, meantime, unleashed more than 500 drones across Ukraine. That is the biggest such onslaught since its invasion began more than 3 years ago. And in Rome, a fueling station selling liquefied petroleum gas erupted in a fireball, injuring more than 40 people and sending debris flying hundreds of yards. The cause is under investigation. Still ahead on the CBS Evening News, meteorologist Paul Hagen returns with the holiday forecast. Tom